I'm going to call this March 18th, 2025 special Hancock County Commissioners meeting to order. And ask if there's any adjustments to the closed agenda. I just need to accept the agenda.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Public comment. Anybody wishing to make a public comment this morning? If you're here on behalf of the K-9 program, public comment will be on the next agenda item, that issue. Anything else except the K-9 program? Is there somebody else that wishes to make a public comment? Kathleen?
Thank you. I'm here again, still being steadfast with slot one being discriminated against with the amount of county tax both their own Staunton pay with attempts to hold back law enforcement resources for the sheriffs and the compounded problem of no patrols. For slot one also, and slots 2 and 3 do get coverage, especially with the state police. When we don't have coverage, crime goes up, longer to get responsive, and being subject to some of the highest county taxes for our hometowns is unfair, and the appearance that, crime is going to go up in our areas because we don't have that coverage. I don't like the idea of being discriminated against and treated more unfairly than the other slots. It has been brought to my attention. I brought this to the attention of my state representatives. I don't think they realize what's going on, and I've encouraged them to fact check themselves and the local media outlets. It's also clear to me that with our districts being manipulated and quashed with misinformation and contradicting interpretations of how the county should be run. And having said that, as an elected member of the BAC and a resident of county and a taxpayer, I am pursuing efforts of changing the statutes governing the county budget oversight and looking into charter measures. Clearly,
Oh my God.
personal vendettas and hostile work environments are not the way to move our county forward. But if that's what it takes to get more of a balanced, reasonable, thriving county, then that's maybe what we have to do. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on comment this morning? Anybody on? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to our next agenda item. This next item is called to help hopefully determine the policy we will have with regards to how many dogs we're going to have in the K-9 program. This discussion this morning will lead off with the Sheriff's Department if they wish to make a presentation. We'll then get comments from the commissioners, and then finally we'll open it up to comments from the public, after which hopefully we can come to some resolution on the commission and put this agenda item to rest.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. In preparation of the agenda item today, prepared a few words, but I do think that, in general, the topic has been discussed at length in some respects. But I have prepared some words that I would like to read to you today to discuss that topic. I understand that the item was added to the agenda regarding the K-9 units with the sheriff's office and how many we will maintain moving forward. Quite frankly, I struggle to see what more there is to discuss. The conversation began when we requested to utilize already budgeted funds to replace a vital asset to our department. That request was met with resistance initially.
Dakota, do you want to wait till Bill can actually give you his attention and not just fumble around with stuff up there?
You are out of order. One more comment like that, you will be told to leave.
Well, you're just being rude to the
I
speakers
heard
at
every
the
word he
podium.
said, don't worry about it.
Okay,
But that comment was uncalled for.
it's not
and
uncalled
that's not
for.
going
You
to
do this every
happen
time
again.
somebody from the
Okay,
sheriff's
that's it.
office is up
You're-
there.
You have to leave. Leave this building, leave this room.
This is a public meeting.
You're being expelled for misconduct, and leave.
What's misconduct?
If you don't leave, we're going to adjourn.
I
this
addressed
meeting.
Dakota, I didn't address you.
You're told to leave. If you don't leave, we're going to adjourn.
I'll leave so you can carry on with the meeting.
conversation began when we requested to utilize already budgeted funds to replace a vital asset to our department. That request was met with resistance initially, citing a desire to save taxpayer dollars, one that I can respect, specifically regarding the canine handler stipend. The stipend, might I add, that was agreed upon and implemented with the commissioner's approval. To emphasize the value and necessity of our canine units, the patrol union proposed a creative solution that not only eliminated the stipend concern, but also provided a financial incentive for the commissioners to maintain 2 canines, preserving the current level of service. In fact, this proposal saves over $2,000 per year compared to the existing contractual language for maintaining just 1 dog. This was done in good faith as a compromise to ensure that we continue to serve our community effectively. Yet, once that stipend concern was addressed, a new issue emerged, one that had not been previously raised. This time, the concern was training costs. I welcome that discussion as I thoroughly researched multiple training programs that offer cost-effective solutions. If the concern is training expenses related to deputies' wages, I would argue that this is no different than sending a deputy to the academy. If you want an effective deputy or an effective canine, you must be willing to invest in their training. I stand before you today while my child is in the hospital, and as soon as this meeting concludes, I'll return there. Some may wonder why I'm here at all, and my answer is simple. Because I care, and I care about this community. I care about the citizens that we serve, and I am proud of our department. Many of us share that sentiment. But let me say this outright. I'm tired of seeing the sheriff's office belittled or undermined by a commissioner. If this behavior continues unchecked, it will only get worse. Commissioner Clark's opposition to the sheriff's office is well documented. He has voiced it on several occasions. The perception of his actions has reached beyond these walls in our county. Oftentimes, when we meet with other agencies, a common sentiment we hear is, "I don't know how you deal with it." The negativity has real consequences. It affects morale. It hinders our ability to recruit qualified personnel. And today, it is directly impacting our operations and our ability to provide services to the people of Hancock County. To put it bluntly, Commissioner Clark's actions are putting our deputies and our citizens at risk. Gentlemen, you have heard from members of the community at the last meeting and again today, and I'm sure you will after I get done speaking now. Constituents from each of your districts have spoken in support of our canine units. Not a single person has come forward to speak in opposition. The only reason we are even having this conversation is due to a procedural requirement that we seek approval for expenditures over $2,500. We are not asking for additional funds. We are not asking to exceed our budget. We are simply requesting the ability to utilize the resources already allocated for this purpose. I implore you to listen to your constituents and not allow personal disputes to cloud your judgment. This decision is an opportunity for everyone to win. The sheriff's office maintains 2 canine units. We stay status quo. The commissioners can say they save taxpayer dollars while maintaining services. And most importantly, the citizens benefit from the continued protection and support these units provide. The fact that we've had to fight this hard over something that is both budget neutral and publicly supported should make one thing abundantly clear: time to put personal agendas aside and do what is right for the people that we serve. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. Commissioner Wallingford, do you have any comments?
My general comment would be, kind of just going back to when the proposal first came forward with MOU with the union, to me, that it seemed to be a good faith effort to address the concerns that the commission had made. Yourself, Commissioner Clark. So to me, that was a win again for everybody, because we'd be watching the budget, and to me, it showed a willingness on the part of the sheriff's office to listen to your concerns and concerns of the commission about where we're sitting with our budget. So to me, it addressed it. That's why I supported it. That's about it. Yeah.
I wanted to remind everybody that the second dog came about because we hired a patrol deputy that was a certified canine handler. Came with a dog, and we were able to buy the dog and have a second dog on hand without the cost of sending somebody away for training. it's unknown, and I really wonder, and I kind of doubt that had that come to us with a request to train the deputy by the law, whether or not that would have in fact happened. So anyways, that second dog and handler left, leaving us now back to the one dog policy. And the issue is almost brand new. Do we want to have a second dog? And do we want to go through the cost of training an existing patrol deputy for that second handler? I would remind everybody that a canine handler is really nothing more than a regular patrol, a regular patrol deputy who is doing the same work as every other patrol deputy, except he's accompanied by a canine, and once in a very great while uses that for a canine incident. 99% of the time, he's doing the same thing, answering complaints, traffic and criminal enforcement. And when we approved the budget for this individual, this patrol deputy, that's what we approved it for. Handling complaints, enforcement for traffic and criminal. And I would direct your attention to Title 38, Section 401, state law that says the county commissioners shall ensure that the law enforcement functions required under the budget are being adequately performed. Now, folks, what that means is that if you approve money in the budget for a particular cause, you should be spending that money for that cause. At no time last fall was there ever a discussion about using enforcement funds for specialty training. The Budget Advisory Committee never advised us that they wanted to spend it for that, and we never approved the budget for that. We should not be spending funds in that budget for unintended purposes. And when you take patrol funds that are meant for patrol activities, and you divert those to training that is not related to the basic functions of a patrol deputy, you are diverting those funds and spending it for unintended purposes. The other problem here is that we have a primary patrol dog, Travis Frost. And if we approve the second dog, we're going to deplete the reserve fund that pays for the dog. And if something happens this year that we need to replace Finn, there are no money in the budget to do that. Now, the cost, as we're talking about, and you've heard it several times, that the money's already in the budget, is really a misnomer. First of all, the money was never in the budget for training. But on top of that, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 in this patrol deputy's wages, salaries, benefits, cost of travel, cost of training, just to do this. But the biggest unknown is the time and a half overtime it's going to take to fill that patrol deputy's 3 months. He's going to be gone at an off-site training for filling it until he gets back with the dog. Now, this is an effort to get spending within the Sheriff's Department under control. Now, in 2023, in 2024, the Sheriff's budget went up almost a third. Not only that, but in 2023, they overspent their budget by $190,000. And the 2024 budget is almost $80,000 overspent, and all the bills have not been tallied yet. Now, this doesn't include the $1,572,000 that the Sheriff's Department spent in the last 2 years from our federal ARPA grant funds. This is time that we got spending under control in the Sheriff's Department, and we give the taxpayers a break. Now, with one vacancy in the Sheriff's Department and 2 of their patrol positions being in the academy, to me, it seems unreasonable at this time to take a deputy and send him away for 3 months of training for this K9 when there is such a shortage of deputies. The other thing is that just how needed is this? We've all heard the stories of the elderly with dementia that's lost in the woods, and when that dog finds that person, he's worth his weight in gold. But how many times has that really happened? Now, in figures provided us by the sheriff's department, we see that there were 73 canine incidents in the last 2 years. Now, that's 36 a year. You divide that by 2 dogs, that's an average of 18 per year. That's 1 canine incident every 20 days. And in 20 days, that patrol deputy works 12, which means for 12 days, the dog is with the deputy on the average before he's needed. Now, you have to say to yourself, as valuable as a commodity as a canine might be, at what point do you want to spend this kind of money to support this when when it's not going to be utilized that often? On top of that, unlike what we heard in prior meetings and whatnot, there are 4 canines in Hancock County. It's rather strategically located with one at the police department, also the police department, one at the sheriff's department, one in Bucksport, and one in Gooseboro. There are also 2 more in central Penobscot County. And depending upon availability, they could be in the greater Ellsworth area in 30 minutes. Now, all these dogs are available on a regional basis. And that's the way our canine program should be in Hancock County, that we help towards a canine consortium of several agencies to make sure that there is always a dog available when we need it. The commissioners have always supported the sheriff's department's canine program, but I support it with 1 dog towards this consortium and not all the dogs. Sam, do you have a comment?
No, no. I'd like to just speak about a couple of the points that Commissioner Clark just made. One, to talk about the wages that he referenced. So those wages, as Sam, Commissioner DeBella, you're well aware, obviously, with being the BAC, and as well as the rest of the commissioners, those wages are just that, wages. It's not defined in the budget as wages for enforcement, because naturally, law enforcement, as deputies, we are required to complete an annual requirement for training each year. Those wages are utilized for those purposes as well. We also do have a training line. Commissioner Clark's statement as far as, depleting the reserve account to purchase a dog if something were to happen, not having funds. We also budget for those purposes as well. We have a budget line for supplies and care for the canine. We have a budget line for training. We have a budget line for canine overtime specifically. So, with that being said, it's not, the budget isn't structured strictly as enforcement wages as he would claim. In addition to that, Commissioner Clark also talks about it's worth its weight in gold when that dog does benefit the society. I would bring your attention back to some facts that were previously provided based on the call data, that these canines since January of 2023 have responded or been utilized in 21 towns or territories across Hancock County. The great benefit that has had to the county as a whole and its citizens. In addition to that, Commissioner Clark talks about other dogs that are available in Hancock County. One thing that I would bring your attention to, he had stated that Goldsboro has a dog. They do not. They have not had a dog for, I believe, at least a year. In addition to that, Bucksport's dog is confined oftentimes to their town line, because that is a officer, much like elsewhere, that is responding to calls for service and handling calls for service within that town, those town lines. So they aren't often available. With that being said, to put that into perspective, over this past, I believe since January of 2023, our canine has been utilized in the city of Ellsworth over 17 times. To just put it in perspective, how often their dog may not be available. And so those are some things that I'd like to bring your attention to. As Commissioner Clark stated, worth the weight in gold. And, with that being said, 18 or a complaint for where a canine is utilized per dog every 20 days or 18 days, whatever number that he had stated. I don't disagree with that, but one thing that I would say is that 36 times in a year, according to Commissioner Clark, that dog was worth its weight in gold, or those dogs were worth their weight in gold. Whether they found a domestic violence suspect, whether they found that elderly individual, whether they were utilized for apprehension purposes or protection of a deputy, or they're utilized on a search warrant. There's many different facets that these canines provide to the sheriff's office for benefits that they provide to the sheriff's office and the citizens of Hancock County that a deputy cannot naturally do. You know, I'd love to be able to track somebody or have the nose of a dog. Unfortunately, I don't. They have a benefit and they have a purpose, and that's why they're utilized in law enforcement. That a typical officer, deputy, trooper, whatever, whoever it may be, that we just don't have, we aren't able to do ourselves, and that's why we rely on the canines. And to have only one at the sheriff's office, whether to only have one at the sheriff's office is not a viable solution at this point in time. The reason being is, as Commissioner Clark stated, Hancock County Sheriff's Office has one canine at this point in time. They're looking to expand that. The state police no longer has any canine handlers that reside in Hancock County. Ellsworth has one dog, Woodsboro does not, Bucksport has one. So with that being said, there is a real need for canines, and if we only have one, then that significantly limits our ability to provide that service, whether that deputy is off, whether they're away, whether they're on vacation or whatnot. It really inhibits our ability to provide that service to the citizens of Hancock County. And as I previously mentioned, this proposal that was submitted in front of you, the MOU on behalf of the patrol union, allows us to continue that same service for less of a cost than the contractual language just to maintain one. It's a budget neutral proposal that seems like a no-brainer. And that would be my remarks to Commissioner Clark's comments.
Lieutenant, I got a question for you. So the training of the dog, it only happens so one time of the year, at least in our area that we want to use. That is too late for this year, right? Because it's beginning of March.
So that was something I looked into in preparation for today. So our canine agent, who was with John Stanley, was trained through another training program. There's multiple canine training programs in the state of Maine, or canine training programs available to us. At this point in time, I've looked into 3 training programs, and at least 2 of them would be available to us in the immediate future, like as in coming right up. So we do have viable options as far as training for that canine and that handler. Now, obviously, as a department, you know, Commissioner Clark talks about staffing and so forth. I'd remind you that we have 3 vacant positions. He references 1, but once again, he talks about, you know, us being short-staffed. Some controversy around that as far as allowing us to fill our budgeted positions with staffing. Now, with that being said, I think that's something that ultimately should be left back to the sheriff's office to be able to do it in the best manner possible and to manage our operations. I think that's within our scope and our purview. But as far as the training program, there is one that has started or is slated to start if it hasn't already. I believe it might have yesterday. But there are other training programs as well that are available to us in the immediate future.
So my only question is the other programs, when they do the training, where are they located? And it is going to exacerbate the problem of Commissioner Clark's concern
Yes.
of the officers being.
Yeah, so just to touch on that, so there are, out of those 3 training programs that was looked into, the first one being the Maine State Police Canine Training Program, which I believe you are referencing. They do have a training program that starts in the spring, which I believe started yesterday. And then that's the patrol school, the drug school in the fall. There is another training program called Law Enforcement Dogs of Maine. They train every Wednesday, typically in southern Maine, which is also the same as the Maine State Police Training Academy, there's travel included. But they train once a week, and that would be available to us immediately. In addition to that, you also have the New Hampshire State Police Canine School. Now, we did inquire to them because there is another department from Maine at Presque Isle, actually, that just went through that same program. They sent their officer to the New Hampshire State Police School. Speaking with the sergeant there in charge of that, their state police school is structured very similar to the Maine State Police School. It's actually a week shorter. And in addition to that, there is housing provided down there, and it is $3 to $4 a night based on they're housed at the National Guard base down there, so it's a very minimal cost. you're talking, roughly $20 a week in housing, very minimal. In addition to that it is a week-long training program, the same as the Maine State Police Training Academy, so there's no difference there. So the New Hampshire State Police K-9 training program is a very viable solution at approximately the same investment. Now, the law enforcement dogs in Maine is another solution, and then as we had talked about previously, the Maine State Police K-9 program is also another thing that we would look at. It was discussed, if there's going to be follow-up question, I'll just answer it now. It was discussed about the New Hampshire State Police Training Program. That program would be, or is accepted or certified to the same standards as Maine, so it is viable, which is why an agency like Prescott House just went to theirs.
So I'm confused on the New Hampshire one. How many weeks is the program?
Yeah, so the New Hampshire program is 13 weeks. And in comparison to for the patrol school, in comparison to the state police program, which would be 14, the Maine State Police, which would be 14.
So one of the things that's going on too is Ben, the existing dog, is going to retire essentially at the end of the year.
Yes.
From everything I understand.
That is our intentions.
So if we say that we want 2 dogs,
Mhm.
we might have one starting relatively soon, within the next month or 2, let's say. And then we're gonna need to put Finn's replacement in, I would assume. We'd be able to get it in March.
Yeah, so ultimately, our intentions would be to send a K-9 to training now, with the intentions of Finn retiring at the end of the year. He's reached his working life. And so, with that being said, we would intend on training a K-9 now, so that at the end of the year when we retire Finn, we do continue to have a working dog, and we don't have a lapse in dogs for several months. So we would continue to have a working dog, and then at that point, we would Finn's replacement, we would look at sending to training next year, so that we stagger them and we're not sending 2 people to training at the same time. And we're also continuing to have a K-9 available. In addition to that, we're looking at utilizing the funds that we have to purchase this K-9 now and to have that asset. We have looked at grant opportunities that we would intend on submitting for Finn's replacement. So that's our intentions. There's some different funding programs that we intend to look at and solicit for Finn's replacement.
So essentially, it would take for us to really have 2 working K-9s, or certified K-9s, I guess I should say. It really would be like the summer or fall of next year.
It would, by the time, yeah.
We're really talking about a long-range plan
It would,
to have 2.
exactly. It would be a brief period, probably towards the end of this year, and then you'd have Finn's retirement. And then by the time his replacement would be trained, you'd be looking at having, as you had mentioned, that's 2 working K-9s. It would be probably middle of fall of next year.
You want to do
I'm just waiting for you through.
Okay, nice. Sure.
How many dogs did you say, or did you say that Bangor had a dog?
So around us, Washington County, I believe, they have a strong K-9 program. They have 3. Waldo County has some dogs. Hancock County has 1. They're looking at expanding. Bangor has a couple, but then they also have additional dogs because they have a requirement for the Bangor International Airport. They're bomb dogs and such. And so, other than that, previously we had state police troopers that had K-9 units that were stationed in Hancock County. We don't have that anymore. Previously, Gouldsboro had a K-9. They don't have that anymore. That officer has since left. Ellsworth does have 1 K-9. Bucksport has 1 K-9. That's it for the county.
But I have been assured by Lieutenant Johnson, there's 2 canines in central Scott County, and he said, of course, depending on availability, they can be here. 30 minutes based on emergency nature, so there are 2 dogs somewhere there that he's that's available.
And much like ours, you know, obviously those troopers or corporals, sergeants, they also handle calls for service. They work shift work, so they aren't always available either. And the 2 canines that I'm aware of for the Northern Field Troop that Commissioner Clark is referencing, I believe they're both handled by corporals. So those corporals are ultimately supervising for the county or for the Northern Field Troop, and those corporals and sergeants cover an area between Washington, Hancock, Piscataquis, and Penobscot County. And so it is, you have got to also consider that those 2 canines are covering that vast of an area. So with that being said, I mean, there's been multiple occasions where the state police themselves have asked to utilize our canine and vice versa. We rely on that resource from each other because they aren't always available. So there are instances where we'll ask for a canine and there isn't one available. And this is to help address that issue and once again, stay status quo while saving some taxpayer dollars and maintaining the same level of service.
The majority in the area of law enforcement agencies have just 1 dog.
So Gouldsboro does not have any, Winter Harbor does not have any, Bucksport has 1, Ellsworth has 1, Bar Harbor does not have any, Southwest Harbor does not have any. So those are some agencies that would also rely on us for those services. And the other aspect to that, the other thing that I would mention is that, you know, we've had instances, for example, there's a domestic violence incident in Serena a while back, and the suspect had fled into the woods. We asked for a canine unit, and there was one in Ellsworth working at that time, but they were unavailable because you have to remember that Ellsworth officers also handling calls for service in Ellsworth. They're not always available to be pulled. With that being said, I can't recall an instance where, you know, a Bucksport police canine or an Ellsworth police canine responded down to Deer Isle for us, or down to Sereno or Gouldsboro or such, because those officers have to be available for their respective areas. So while they do have canines, and I will never say that it is not any benefit to us because they may assist immediately around that town, it is not a benefit by large to the citizens of Hancock County because of that area that naturally they're confined.
So you're saying that if you needed to share a resource, canine, that Ellsworth would have to refuse you because the dog was just out on patrol with the officer?
So in a case where that officer is working, because once again, they work shift work, so they have 1 canine, so that canine would be available approximately 40 hours out of the week. And with that being said, yeah, depending on their staffing levels, they may not be able to send that canine. There has been instances where that has occurred because they do have a responsibility to answer the calls for service in Ellsworth as well. So it's not always, while they may be able to send the canine on occasion, that's not always the case. They do have their own responsibilities.
And how many officers does Ellsworth have?
Last time I checked, they have approximately the same call volume as us, and I believe they have 4 more than us, or 3 more, something to that effect.
So another officer couldn't cover for the canine unit. If the canine unit is out on a call, not necessarily needing a dog, just covering their area, and that canine unit was needed here in Hancock County, couldn't someone else in their department cover that area?
So it would depend on the time of the day, whether they have overlaps in shifts or not, because they only, that canine handler is a supervisor as well for Ellsworth Police Department. So that canine handler is responsible for that shift, so that also does carry its own responsibilities. And that, because he is a supervisor, is not always able to leave the city of Ellsworth, being supervisor of the law enforcement services at that particular time. It depends on the shift coverage, it depends on their staffing levels on that particular day. There's several variables that would fall into it. I'm not saying that they would never help us. They have. But there's also been instances where they have not been able to no fault of their own. They just have their own responsibilities.
And their police forces has a bigger staff than say, Hancock County.
It does. They have more staff than us.
And they say one dog is enough for them. They seem to be using just one dog. Are they debating that they should have two dogs on a bigger police force?
I know there was discussion about it previously. I think there was a brief period in time where they might have had two dogs. But at this point in time, they have, so they do have more staffing, but they also have an individual that, the main drug enforcement agency, they have, they structure their department a little differently than ours. So they also have an SRO that takes out of that complement and so forth. So it just depends on how they structure their staff. I can't answer all those questions on their behalf.
Thank you. Now we'll open it up for members of the public who would like to speak.
I'm here today again to express my strong support for additional canine agent for the Hancock County Sheriff's Office.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you identify yourself?
Yes, I apologize. My name is Rebecca Long, and I'm a taxpayer within Hancock County. Each year, crime trends and community needs become more complex. Calls related to domestic violence, mental health crises, children in distress, and agency assists, many of which require the support of a canine agent, are increasing. Law enforcement in this country must continuously adapt into implementing new strategies to serve and protect our communities effectively. The Hancock County Sheriff's Office is no exception. How can they safely, efficiently, and effectively do their jobs without the appropriate staffing and resources? The answer is simple: they cannot. As we discussed in the last meeting, there seem to be underlying reasons why this matter has not been yet voted on. However, the delay must end. Community members have repeatedly voiced their support for additional deputies and an additional canine agent, and now is the time to act. Commissioners, I urge you, let your vote today truly reflect the commitment and care you have expressed for this county. So let us move forward together by approving these necessary measures. And I wanted to make a comment as far as a canine having its weight in gold. I think it's important that we use the resources that we have to be proactive and not reactive. Because yes, a canine does have its weight in gold, but we have to have that resource available in order to be proactive and not reactive. Because as much as you might say, well, we want to keep, costs low and help the taxpayers, when a victim of domestic violence is being under attack and there's one deputy out, that canine agent is its worth in gold. And they're not thinking about the cost. They're thinking about their safety. That deputy is thinking about their safety. And this is what's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen?
I'd just like to say, I think that for the sheriff's department, obviously it's very important that, you're able to carve your own path with this and maybe not so much reliant on other resources. And having overlapping dogs, dogs age out and everything else. I have two dogs. I have an older dog, I have a younger dog. So when one dog I have to put away or whatever, I got the other dog and keeps the others straight and I get another one. I like dogs. The other thing is too, is I just really uncomfortable with some of the assertions that's happening out of this. Yes, the sheriff's office the budget is up. But the other thing is too, this is reflecting the number of calls that we're having. State police has stepped away from this, especially SWAT 1. We're not getting it. So who takes care of the volume of those calls? Also too, the calls are getting more violent, and the crime statistics, people aren't happy. And, you know, in our area, it's been especially egregious at times. So, I mean, and there's other budget areas in your county budget. And, you know, they have problem areas. I don't say you addressing them as harsh as you are the other ones. And I mean, and even proposing building other facilities when you're gonna be moving the court. I mean, we have space used here. So if we're gonna save the taxpayer dollars, then I mean, I think we need to look at the whole county thing very much. And I'm looking forward to next year's budget because I may have a terribly different view on things than maybe what I have on the past and who gets to speak.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Does not appear to be, so now I'd like to try to get resolution on this.
I'd like to move to have the sheriff's office K-9 program maintained at $2 level.
Motion made, is there a second?
I'll second that.
We've heard this, it's been discussed, so I'm gonna call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Motion fails. I'm going to move that the K-9 program at the Sheriff's Department consists of one dog, except in the event that they hire a deputy who is K-9 handler certified, that we would consider a second dog. I hear a motion, a second for that motion. I made the motion. You second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 2-1. This matter is resolved finally. Now we'll move on to approval of the previous minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the March 4th, 2025 Commissioners' regular meetings presented.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unorganized territories. We do have Millen's report from, what, a month? Is Millen on this morning? Millen,
Morning, Commissioners.
comments on your monthly report, Millen?
Well, just to reiterate the report, Martins Ridge Road washed out again in the rains on Wednesday and Thursday.
Now, we've discussed this in the past, Millen, but do you think paving would take care of that problem?
I think it would. I think that's the only solution to it.
No.
Every year it washes out about this time of year.
Is TIF money available for that?
Martins Ridge Road is in the TIF program for the solar project. So there won't be any money in that TIF for another couple of years. We have money in the road reserve that would cover paving it.
We do.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to suggest you consider bringing back to us whatnot information and so we can discuss perhaps paving that and see if we can keep this from becoming a perpetual problem.
We got a bid last fall and it was awfully high and we rejected it and didn't do anything. But I think if we went out to bid early this spring and got multiple contractors involved and let them gave them a deadline if it had to be done by October 15th and let them pick when they did it over the paving season. So it would fit into their work schedule. We might get a better bid for the work.
Gentlemen, by general consensus, can we just allow Millard to seek bids for paving, or up specifications and seek bids for paving the Martins portion? By general consensus, Millard, we are agreeing to that. Why don't you draw up specifications, go out to bid and bring back some information and some pricing for us? And let's
Okay.
talk about it again, okay?
All right, thank you. The lady from Nature Conservancy. I don't know whether she's here yet this morning or not.
Excuse me, she's already been here. We've signed the paperwork. We're all set.
Oh, good, thank you.
Do you want a copy of that agreement?
Yes, please, if you have it.
Brittany's got it, and she'll get you a copy,
Okay, good.
okay?
Knowing,
I don't think we did the, I
no,
don't think we made our motion.
Yes,
Report did.
I was wondering, does the entire road have to be paved or just the section that gets washed out?
well, good question, Sam. I would think the flat part wouldn't have to be paved, just the hill. But again, I'm not sure you're gonna save that much money by not paving the flat part. Because it's mostly hills.
Yeah.
And that
Um,
goes back into Franklin, just as you break out into field right there, right?
Right. I've already talked to the first selectman of Franklin. And they were suggested that if we were going to pave it, Franklin would like to piggyback on our paving project. And they would like to pave from where the county line stops up to the top of the hill.
By the towers.
Well, not all the way to the towers, but at least get to the top of the hill so that their section of road don't continue to wash out our section of road.
I see, yep.
Would that be one bid?
Yeah. Oh, well, they might do it separate bids, but so that it happened at the same time while the pavers were there, it would,
That might help our pricing too if.
Yeah. bigger project might help the pricing.
So you'd pave right from 182 right to the county line, correct? The town line?
That would be what I would look for, but then the town would add on a little bit on the other end.
Okay,
What I would like to talk to the commissioners about doing some site visits.
yeah, excuse me, Billy. Excuse me, just a second, please. We have to approve your report. I'm sorry, please.
Sorry, I'm not going to accept and file the UT monthly report as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No, go ahead with your discussion.
Last summer, last fall, we talked about doing some site visits and we never could schedule it. And I was just wondering if we could get some done this spring before everybody got too busy.
After mud season?
Yes, or whenever, even if you want to see some of these roads at their worst.
I'm always available. I say always. I'm more available perhaps than the other two, Sam.
Oh, I'm available.
Sam's available, so I guess it's up to John.
So I'm going to do it after a meeting.
How about after a meeting day? If we have like the second meeting of the month and we have a short agenda, right after the meeting, we could meet you and go.
Works for me.
Let's talk about doing this in perhaps two phases though, and doing the.
Yep.
And that way we wouldn't have such a long day after a meeting, so.
Okay.
All right, so John and I will talk towards, probably it'll be the April meeting, maybe. The second meeting in April. We'll shoot for that for now, but we'll have to see what's on the agenda and
Okay,
Michael's putting it together. We'll see how short we can make it, and then we'll decide then, okay?
Okay.
Very good. Anything else?
that's all I've got. Oh, there are a couple of bills in the legislature that affect LUPC. I think
Michael's made us aware of one that reduces the comment period from 90 days to 30.
yes, that is LD 870. And right now, to appoint for the county commissioners to appoint a commissioner, you have 90 days to make the appointment. And the bill is to change that from 90 days to 30. If you don't make the appointment within 30 days, then the governor would make the appointment.
And Michael points out that there's a 10-day posting period that we have to follow and whatnot, so we can't, it's not something we can do immediately, huh?
Right.
So 30 days is not enough. We should oppose that, Millen.
I would think it would be inconvenient for the commissioners to do it in 30 days unless you already knew ahead of time that you were gonna make a recommendation that who you were gonna recommend. But if
Well-
advertise, there isn't time enough.
You've made that very easy for us, but of course,
Yeah.
some commissioners may need more time.
And
Gentlemen,
also in this bill, they're changing the system. Right now, there are 9 commissioners. One from each of the 8 counties with the most unorganized territories, and then 1 appointed from the governor. And the bill is going to change the makeup to 13 members, 1 from each of the 8 unorganized territories, and the rest appointed by the governor. And
trying
then,
to stack the deck here or something?
yeah,
Gentlemen, what's your pleasure? I understand, Michael, the County Commissioners Association is actively opposing this.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
Speaking in
they-
opposition?
They will be speaking and providing testimony as well, from what I understand.
Do you think that's sufficient from Hancock County's point of view?
I know other counties are gonna be there as well. It's really up to you how vocally you wanna be involved in that process. I mean, I think obviously there is going to be a strong expression of concern by the counties that have obviously UTs in them that would be impacted. I haven't heard anybody be supportive of it yet, in other words, so.
These are all you really need to do, so draft a letter of opposition.
I mean, essentially that, and I guess it's up to Miller too. I don't know if would you be planning on attending if the commissioners wanted to submit some type of letter? Would you plan on attending that public hearing? I think it's next week, isn't it?
yes, the 20th. Thursday, March 20th.
Would that be a conflict for you, Millen, to speak on that bill as being a member of the L?
I almost think it's a conflict for me as a member of the commission, but again, if I'm there just representing Hancock County, may not be.
Well, I think John's suggestion of a lot of support to the Maine County Commissioners Association, advocating that we support their opposition, maybe that's good enough, huh? Sam, what do you think?
That might work.
So, Michael, would you draft something on behalf of the commissioners? And I'll sign that on their behalf. And we'll send that to the MCCA supporting their opposition to this. Okay, Millen?
Yep.
Okay. So, do you have another issue?
No, there's another bill, LD 383, and that's to move the Land Use Planning Commission from the Department of Conservation and Forestry over to be under DEP.
Sounds like an appropriate move, doesn't it, to you?
No idea. I think it's political.
Medical? No. We're talking Augusta.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, thank you, Millen. Let's move on to the airport. Morning, Leroy.
Good morning. So the only thing I got is the request for us to go out for RFQs for engineering consultants. The current one expires, I think August 5th, so trying to get ahead of it so we can get somebody in place, make sure we're in place by the expiration.
Are there very many firms?
What's that?
Are there very many firms that?
I've already talked in the last couple of months. We've had Hoyle Tanner's been here, Du Bois and King's been here, McFarland Johnson and Jacobs. So yeah, so we're in the sights of several.
I'm gonna move to authorize the airport manager to issue a request for qualifications for engineering services as requested.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, thank you.
Thank you. Considering what we took on item 4, you don't need not take any action on item 8, and we'll move on to Human Resource.
I'm gonna move to appoint the Human Resource Manager Joshua Griffin as the Public Access Officer for Hancock County.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we also have our power of attorney that we have to authorize. So move to approve the power of attorney form as presented and to authorize the chairperson to sign the document on behalf of Hancock County.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, you have a request this morning, Monica, for tan.
Oh, yeah, we all,
Oh, wait a minute, I'm
the
sorry.
transfer sheet.
Yeah, the first one, move to approve the transfer sheet for payment of the hot water mixing valve as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't realize it was two cents, I'm sorry. Now, it's hand, Monica. This is the first for a few years, huh?
Yeah.
Are you asking to go out, or are you just giving us a heads up if they become necessary?
So, if I quickly may, I think at this point, we're probably seeking your thoughts and authorization to pursue getting one. We would have to secure bond counsel, which is one thing we'd have to talk about. And I did talk to Eaton Peabody because they're primarily like the big name in town that everybody uses for bond funding, borrowing, everything else. So they can do it by either an hourly amount, which is like $390 an hour, which would be nice, or they can do a full, like $3,200 full guaranteed set price, and if for some reason something takes out of the ordinary, they have to eat that cost. Back when 2020 appears to be the last time we did it for the county before our money came in, it was like 2,500 back then. So obviously over the last 5 years, a little bit of an increase there, but what hasn't increased? So we have to pursue having those conversations with them. And then the other question would be about the banks. I did talk with a local bank yesterday afternoon, and they gave us a couple rates for a 3 or 4 month can, and their percentages are a little bit around 5% anyway. So obviously even the rate's gonna be a little bit higher than what they were before, but the question would be whether or not if we needed to, in most communities apparently do this from what I understand, but if you went out to bid, then we'd have to put together an RFP for proposals and have that submitted, which would take a couple weeks at minimum to get back to you anyway. So I mean, generally, if you're supportive of the idea and concept, then I think there's some underlying fundamental work that we have to do to get us to that point where you could actually then present to you, here's the proposals, here's the rates, here's what we're suggesting, and go from there. So
My thoughts is that if we hire Eaton Peabody today on an hourly basis, we can do that. If we want to accept the 3,200, we're going to about the bid. So I would suggest we hire them on an hourly basis, and authorize you to work with them as a vendor and put together the documents that you think is necessary. What do you think, gentlemen?
I think, to me, it's fine for it to get started, just so that we're on, all set up, ready to locked and loaded.
But do you want to recognize Eaton Peabody as a sole source and take that 3,200 bid? Or do you want to?
The hourly's fine.
Pardon?
I think the hourly's fine.
Saying hourly or?
Yeah.
Okay, medical, hourly?
then the other question would be about the banks, obviously, and whether or not you'd want
You'll
to.
have to go up to 70.
So we could put that together and start moving forward on that as well. In terms of just the bond and the tax anticipation note and the funding in general, obviously in the past 4 or 5 years, we've had that large infusion of money from ARPA. So although it wasn't directly spent on those things, we had money in the bank. We're in the transition period now. So the end of last year, trying to get all the projects obligated, obviously we spent a lot of money real quick. So that dramatically dropped those down even before we had finished, well, really about the time we were finishing up the budget process, so we didn't necessarily know where we were gonna be, obviously. The other unknown right now, if we looked at the forecasting and kind of what we've done in the past, one, it's hard to do apples to apples because we haven't had those fluctuations and shortages in recent years. So we basically took the last 4 year, in the first 3 months of this year, and the 2016 to 2020 analysis that had been done and tried to compare them. The other complicating factor we have is not knowing 100% yet what the Hancock site's gonna look like. So, I mean, we could end up being, we're close, right? We could end up being okay if we don't have to tap into that 1.5, but if they do a lot of construction in the summer, then that's gonna leave us in a bind, and that's part of the concern as well. So, you know, if we could bank on that money, we probably would feel more comfortable about it, but it's just likely, obviously, there's gonna be drawdowns during the bulk of construction season, and really, I think June, July, and August, at this point, looking at, seems to be the concern as well, correct?
Yes. And we're not gonna get a tax receipts until September.
Yeah, sometimes they start to come in August,
August, yeah.
the numbers start to go up a bit.
Well, they're not gonna break ground up there till May at the earliest.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how quickly, but I haven't really had a chance to talk with him to realistically find out. That is something I wanted to do as well, obviously, but
Commissioners?
That's fine.
Yes.
Millard speaking. In the past, the county has done a tax anticipation loan with the UT for 500,000 and just paid the UT the interest rather than going through the banks.
You have more than 500,000?
In
Oh, yeah.
the two accounts, yes.
Yes,
So UT has all we need?
not necessarily. I don't know that 500,000 it would be the amount that would be enough to hold us.
Well, that's what I'm asking. No, how much is available? Bring him up. See.
I'd have to sit down with Monica and look to be sure, but we've done 500,000, Scott and I, multiple years.
I recall that now. Yeah.
They hold about 2 million in their accounts.
Well, let's make that an option, Michael, for you to look at. Yeah. Back and see what, I do recall we have a contract and everything, correct, Millard?
Yeah.
Loan contract and so on.
That must have been long ago.
Yeah, I remember it though.
You talked about,
Yeah, maybe 4 to 5 years.
I haven't seen it, yeah, I've seen it, so it must have been back towards.
Scott Atkins was here, right, Millard?
Yes.
Yeah, Scott Atkins was here at the time.
We've done it both ways since I've been here. We did it
Question would be
with
how,
UT.
whether it's enough.
We did it
Right.
with UT.
So, like he said, our question would be whether 500,000 would be enough. I worry about the balances getting low. That's
You could borrow $1 million.
Well, I
well, a
mean,
million, yeah.
if we have 2 million available.
If we had to suddenly, I think that would be an option. If we had to, and we might be able to look at things that way and say, gee, if it gets down low enough, let's borrow that from the UT.
You're talking about in addition to.
500 now and 500 later if you need to.
We don't need it immediately. It's not an immediate need. We're just trying to forecast that
So
at the beginning of July.
I think if we can connect with Charlie and kind of maybe get a greater sense from him what the drawdown might look like, and what they're anticipating from this construction. In combination with Auckland Miller and look at the analysis, we might be able to come up with something that would be a little, in the meantime, also putting together the framework for the other thing. So if we had to do it, we could pull the trigger real quick and.
Do we still need the bond bank if we?
Not if we don't, yeah, I mean, I have to look at that. I have to look and see what the county.
Do you recall, Millard, if we had to go to bond bank?
No, we didn't.
We did not.
The idea of doing it to the UT.
Did you have any legal counsel involved with it, Millard, or was it just an?
I think Scott went through, had an attorney draw up the agreement that we signed for the loan, and that was it.
let's go back and review the past document to see if maybe that's the best way to go.
So we can do that, and then combination, kind of set the framework, and if it ends up, we don't need it, great, but at least we've got it there to start the process if we need to.
At the time, he had the state auditor look it over and they were happy as long as it was done in a legal loan fashion.
And how is the rate determined, Miller? Do you recall?
Whatever the standard bank loan rate was.
Right.
And it's not, we can't get a deal from you. huh?
Maybe.
Never hurts to ask.
Well, the thing is though, is that if we went out to bid from the banks, we would get something better than the standard rate. So if we pay you the standard rate, we have lost the benefit of going out to bid. And I'm just wondering if we can't chop off 1% in recognition of a more attractive rate for bidding and call that.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, we'll have to explore, it, make
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
See what
I mean,
happens.
obviously, if we're drawing up an agreement, an attorney would tell us whether or not there's something there that we're going to see, so. But
I think that's more a question for legal than it is,
But at this point, so you'd be willing to work with us, Miller, on that?
definitely, that makes more sense for everybody.
We'll try the two.
You will earn a little interest and the county will save going through the bond bank and save the money they have to pay the bond bank.
Very good.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Miller.
Thank you.
Anything further? So let's talk about our community benefits grants and the applications. You have those in your book. You have taken the lead here, John, and gone through some of the process. You basically reviewed these already, right?
Yeah,
You looked at the form that, we have two forms on evaluation, correct? One of them is looking at each of the applicants. The other one is the setting up the discretionary category. Correct? Yeah. So, Sam, we don't have those forms in front of us. I think they're in there.
because we weren't sure, I think, how we might adapt from how we've done
Yeah,
it last year.
Well, we need those forms. So, where the hell is it? You looking for forms, Michael?
Yeah, I should have. Sorry. Those didn't get put in the binders then that you have in front of you?
No. We have the application, but we don't have the scoring. This was all the stuff.
Not really everything in there.
Now, one of the first things we were going to, I would say, do away with, we were gonna modify was what percentage of the available funds went towards the categories, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
So would you just eliminate those percentages from the scoring sheet process here?
Yeah.
So Sam, if you understand what we're doing on your cover sheet, this cover sheet, up there on your right. Yeah. Your right.
Yeah.
Looks like that. And previously, we had said 7% of the funds was gonna go towards tourism and recreation, 14, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And John is suggesting, and I kind of agree with him, that we'll do away with these. In other words, we have 80,000 available. And any or all of that can go for any one. If we want to give it all to community development, for example, we could. So no longer will we have the, but yeah, we've asked them to apply by categories, but the percentages won't apply. John, did you look at the scoring? Any problem with F, 1F? As far as the scoring? Now, the other form we have here is the discretionary. That would be, you have a form for that, or is it just? Yeah, in the form entitled scoring sheet. That is your discretionary, how to compute your discretionary scoring. And from that, you'll use the criteria in 3. So if that's okay, John,
Yeah, that'd be fine, obviously.
depend,
The only thing I was gonna say is, so we're looking at, so are these, are all the information we had put in here, this is from last year's, right?
yeah, this is basically, yeah, we have, that's what it is this year, yes. Yeah.
He doesn't think that we're looking at.
Yeah, no,
Version of it, okay.
Yeah, it's not-
That's all I just want to say, this is all last year's.
Yeah,
stuff,
right,
so
right.
we have to have them update the scoring sheet so it's appropriate.
Where on the scoring sheet, Michael, is the discretionary that? Wait, that's the, this is confusing. Discretionary really doesn't matter. Is there another scoring sheet missing?
Might be one other one. We modified something in the last year too.
Because somewhere along the way here, I thought there was a sheet that said is there? Do we take, so I guess what we do is we take each category, they apply by category, but we take each category, the category that they applied for, and we apply the discretionary criteria to that. So if you've got economic development, then you go over here and say, is that economic development they want to do outside the county? What's the ratio to their budget? And so on. And so it's really the scoring sheet that gives us the total score for that applicant based upon the category that they're applying for. Is that correct, John? You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So in other words, if you take the first applicant, the grant is applying under the category is
Community development.
community development. So, yeah, okay, community development. So then you go down through and you say, okay, apply the discretionary funding with the consideration that they're supplying, that they're applying for grants to promote community development. Some of these don't make any difference, you know, what it is, but then you need, in the back of your mind, you need to know, okay, the size of the service area, community development, the size of, how big is the size of the service area that they're providing for, and for that community development. So
I think the reason that we had that right-hand column obviously was the fact that you had broken up the percentages. Because ultimately, then you took that and calculated what the percentage was there. So I think to a degree, you'd have to, I mean, you could keep it that same way anyway, you're just not performing the last calculation when you get down at the very bottom underneath the total grant fund that's awarded. The allocation numbers there by percentage of applications and all that wouldn't necessarily apply based on that removal of the percentage breakdowns on categories, because you're not gonna, as you stated earlier, not going to say 7% of the total funds has to go here or whatever the case is.
So as we work on the scoring sheet, Michael, we're going to take each applicant and apply the criteria and whatnot, and come up with total points. And that's it. We don't need average, we need times two, none of that. Just the total points. So disregard the average, disregard the times two. And after we apply the criteria to all applicants, then we'll have a total points for each applicant. And then based upon that, we can decide if that's going to be the priority list. We start with the highest points and work our way down till the money's exhausted, or what? Okay. So between now and the next meeting, Jim, I'm suggesting that sit down with your applications, sit down with your scoring sheet, and work through and try to come up with a total points for each applicant. And be prepared at the next meeting to discuss and hopefully come to a resolution on what, as a group, each applicant's total score will be. Once we've determined that, then we'll go down through and start with the highest points, get those in.
Michael, can you just update us?
Yeah.
So, yeah, what their requests are.
You'll be able to just,
I'll just email that out.
Yeah.
Private funding, have any great patterns? That's the first category, the first line. After the application.
prior funding,
Yeah,
because those,
Not all of them have had prior funding.
right, what we need.
And in the application, they listed there, when I was looking through the list, essentially what contributions the county's been getting in the last few years. At least they seem to be pretty good about it. If you have a question, you can probably ask Bill and myself to tell you.
Because you see in the 4D, Sam, it says if an applicant received county funds in last year, the score will be 2. In 2 years, this will be 4, 3 or more will be 6. That's how you try to derive for the prior funding.
so the
That's
prior
pretty much
funding would be a date.
That would be really an objective number, prior funding, based upon whether or not they received funding in the past.
do have last year's vote on the funding. I don't know if you want a copy of that.
Yep, that would be helpful.
So that's,
Copies?
yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any further questions? We all set to muddle through this and do that. And feel free to contact me if you have questions.
Commissioners, if I may ask, my name is Andy Porter. I work for Hancock County Planning Commission. Are applications still being accepted for community
No.
benefits?
The deadline is passed for those. Last Friday at 4 o'clock is the deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, are we all set with that? If so, on the administrator, any comments this morning, Michael? Commissioners' comments. And, sometime in the near future, there's going to be a couple of things I want to put on for discussion. One of them is going to be a discussion regarding the issue of department heads offering employment letters to applicants for the job. And whether or not the commissioners should be involved in that process, which could subsequently end up with hiring the individual based upon meeting the requirements and the criteria in that agreement. And then, or the commissioners perhaps being involved in withdrawing that letter if they, for some reason, fail to meet the conditions of that letter. Anyways, that will be a discussion. And part of that discussion, Josh, will be, I'd like to sit down and meet with you and try to develop a supplement, an application supplement to law enforcement services in Hancock County. There are statutory requirements and regulatory requirements for law enforcement employment that the rest of the county does not have to meet.
Okay.
But we're not asking for those on the application that we have because it's a standard application everybody uses. What I'd like to do is sit down with you and you and I discuss and perhaps develop this supplement that goes with the regular application for those who are applying for a law enforcement position. Total deputy, airport police, something like that. Okay?
Okay.
And so-
We can do that, sir.
And I think maybe we'll sit down and try to do that before this agenda item comes up so that we can have that ready. And I'll contact you and we'll get together and see. I'll explain that better.
Is there a deadline on that, sir?
This is an issue that's come up a few times and whatnot. And there are statutory issues involved in this. Of course, one of them, this is that department heads can't terminate the employment of an individual without commissioner's approval. There's also this issue of just exactly how employed are you when we agree to employ somebody and only giving a letter, an offer. They're really not hired and the offer gets refunded. Anyways, it's a little murky. And I really think, first of all, we need to understand, see whether or not it really requires our involvement in that. So I'll discuss that with you and we'll talk about the statutes that's involved in that. So-
Sounds good, sir.
The other issue, and it may be a very simple conversation, but it has to do with a process for department heads who feel they have a need for a side letter on an existing union contract. That, and I'll tell you, the basis of it would be that they would come to us saying, we need a side letter, this is the issue, and that we would be involved in the negotiation of the details of that side letter. one of the best reasons is that if the side letter was being proposed by the union, because it's something they strongly wanted, it may be an opportunity for us to look at the contract and perhaps level the playing field on matters that we didn't want to give up, we did in order to get a contract. And so we could, maybe they withdraw some of their proposals in their exchange for getting what they wanted. So anyways, the point is that I think we should be actively involved. Department heads should not be out there negotiating with the union directly, because those contracts are between the union and the commissions, not the department heads. So that's going to be another agenda item that you may see coming up in the future.
Didn't that happen with the jail? The union was here. We were discussing.
Well, it happened today with the canine. That was a side letter that had been negotiated with directly between the union and then we were asked to sign it without any input, without any, without any prior knowledge. So anyways, that'll be a full discussion we'll have at some point when we know we've got some extra time. Okay, that's all I have. Anything else, gentlemen?
Move to adjourn?
I'll second that.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
We are adjourned.